This is the third video I'm posting on my YouTube channel, Cutting for Beginners. In this video, I'm showing you how to cut equal lengths or layers. Bananas are sometimes different. They are used in schools. But what's the point? Every hair comes out of the head at a 90-degree angle and gets the same length. That's how you create a same length haircut, or immediately a lower haircut, and you can also apply that in different lengths. In this video, I take you step by step on how to dribble the best. Good luck, everyone! Here are some examples of capsules of equal layers and equal length. What exactly do you need in terms of material? You need hair clips, you need a comb, hairdressing scissors, and a water spray. Here you see the graphic drawing. Each hook comes out 90 degrees from the head when you cut it. And when you then let the hair fall, all layers fall nicely on each other. Here is the front view, so even when it pinches at 90 degrees from the head, all layers fall on top of each other when it falls down. We start with partitioning. Partitioning is really super important. Before you start sectioning, wash and condition the hair well, and then you start with the horseshoe on top. That's a department that starts at the hang of your customer. That's when you're going to let it go all the way to the crown, and you're going to end up at the front again at the temple on the other side. This is called the main guide. Then you have sectioned off the top part of the hair. Once you have fastened it with your clamp, you go to the back. Here, look, you can see it nicely rounded here too. Then you make a straight parting in the middle at the back of the head. Then with your client, you go to the occipital bone, which is the knob on the back of the skull. And there you make a straight part. Now, take the horizontal line, you split it in two, you comb part forward, and you secure it with your hair clip. Then on the other hand, you do exactly the same, so also a straight part at the occipital bone, and then also secure it with a clamp. Do you find it difficult to locate the occipital bone now? Set. You comb against the back of your client's head, and where it hits the head, that's where you make your parting. From us, it is now gone, because a thin part is sometimes hard to secure in your hairdressing clamp. Here again, the department, and from here we can start cutting. We start at the top of the head by creating a guideline. So, in the middle of the horseshoe, on top of the head, you're going to section off a small pass of about 1 centimeter, all the way to the back of your department's horseshoe. This determines the length for your dome. Once you've done that, you then determine the length together with your customer or model. But remember, each hair gets the same length. So what you start with at the front, you end with. The easiest is with equal layers to put your comb next to it and measure. You can never go wrong. You follow the shape of the head. You place your comb next to it with the length you want, then you cut it off in a straight line. Follow the rounding of the head, as you can see here, because each hair comes this way 90 degrees from the head out. So perpendicular, and you see me constantly measuring. Each time I put my comb next to it to cut off the right length. When you then have determined the guideline in the middle, you have an anchor for yourself where you have to adjust each pass. Then I move it to the back and to the side, because then I can easily take my pass. I start with the first one. Look, in the middle is the piece that I have already cut, and I connect the rest of my section nicely to it. And when you start cutting, I would thus put next to every pass you can make, purely to measure the length of the hair. And that way you can never make a mistake. I work with a traveling guideline, so that means I take my previous pass that I cut to the next. Then I have a guideline in the middle, I have a guideline from my previous pass, and then it's a matter of connecting each other. From this side view, you can see it very well. What I have cut, I can remove that. Because as I already said, a clear, clean work area is important. But then you can see the section I've cut, I either remove it or I can. And then I take a small piece with me to my next section. I put my comb next to it again to measure, and make sure that the section I'm cutting, it comes out perpendicular from her head. A pitfall for you could be when you go on the back of the head on the rounding against the going up project. And that's not good, because then you're going to make more length and then it's not equal layers anymore. So you see this here with the rounding, you're going to make more length. And as long as you remember that, when you are cutting, make sure the hairs come out of the head at a 90-degree angle and then connect everything together. Now you can also see how important it is that the hair is well moisturized, well conditioned. So always wash your client with a good shampoo and conditioner before you start cutting, because you have to comb a lot and you don't want tangled hair. I am now starting on the side part of my horseshoe. I take a piece from the passe that I cut on top and note the position of my fingers. They go along with the curve of the head. So when you precisely follow the curve of the head with your fingers, that you keep putting your comb next to it to measure and then cut, then you come very quickly, you find yourself in your very beautiful equal layers. I work with a traveling guideline, meaning that I take a part of my previous past with me each time. So you see me turning with my body, I'm walking with the past. So when I reach the back of the head, my body also moved compared to my past? Well, here you see me doing the other side. Of course, my fingers then go the other way again, along with the curvature of the head. And establish what I also do, contact. You can put it next to measure if your hair is the same length. Look, when you start working with longer lengths, because that's also possible in this refrigerator. Of course, you need to visualize it a bit better for yourself as the length goes beyond your comb. But equal layers, equal length can certainly be chosen in a shorter dome. That you take, for example, half a room length, but you can also cut it really well when you take a length of 1.5 combs, for instance. So it's up to you and your model or client to determine which length where you want to end. Don't take the coarse passes. If you start cutting, better start with passes about 1 centimeter wide, maybe even a little less. That you have to cut more often, because if you start working with too coarse passes, you'll end up with a wave pool in your final result. Then it's all waves in the hair and you don't want that. So when you start learning to cut, take small passes and learn it very well from there. When I have completely done the top, then I separate about 2 centimeters of a section and the rest I put together. Why am I pinning that top hair now? That's just purely for me to keep a good overview of my hair. So I cut this hair. I'm sure these are equal layers. And then I go to the side of the head. But I do want to have a guideline for myself. That's why I mark 2 centimeters of my head pointer so I can connect my next pass to it. So I have the guideline of my comb, plus I have the guideline of the previous cut. And then I know for sure that I'm doing it right. Pay close attention to how I'm going to cut now. The cutting technique I'm using now is called the palm-to-palm technology of both my hands, or I am just making the hair properly wet. Otherwise, it doesn't cut well for me, but your palms are facing each other. This is very important when you start learning to cut. In this way, your back is completely straight, your arms are least stressed, and that's just important for good posture. Maybe you're at hairdressing school, and there might be teachers who teach you this overhand cutting technique. Sure, that's a way too, but it's much more strenuous for your body. And that's not the intention. So if you teach yourself right from the start, I would say learn to master the palm to palm. So it's in this way that with your left hand, if you're a right-handed hairdresser, then you hold your pass in your left hand. Your arm is low and then you cut off the length from above. What I'm therefore doing is constantly keeping that same length. So I have my guideline from the upper pass. And then I continue with the same length cut at each pass. Now you can also clearly see that I constantly move my body. Look, I measure once again for yourself if you are a beginner barber. Then I would measure every section. But I go along with the passes. I still work with the travel and the guideline. So every pass I cut, then I stand with my body in front of it. Then I'm sure the hair comes out 90 degrees from the head, and that I then look nice. I'm following the curvature of the head, and when I'm working with a rising guideline, I'm creating a round shape. And this whole dome has a round shape. You might be thinking right now, the head is a bit rounder and maybe the pass is straighter. But as soon as I have completely done this, then I will therefore make the connection with the top if there's still a small corner, because I should check myself after. But if you look closely at how I cut, then I take the top part of my section is slightly upward. And as soon as I go to the bottom part of the section to cut, then I also pull my track a little bit downward. To follow the curvature of the head as much as possible, I can only make a very small correction to the body. No need to perform. When you always take a piece of your previous pass and cut the line on top, up, then you will see that you come out the same on both sides. It's now constant persecution of what you've done. Apologies for the bit. It's a blurry image, but I'm filming myself. And occasionally I stand with my back to the camera and the image is a bit bossy. But I didn't have a better image to show it, but I hope you all understand it well. Because it's the same thing I do all the time. So I project a pass of 1 centimeter, 1.5 centimeter wide, I project towards me. The top part, so the first 2 cuts I make, I do the top one a bit higher and I pull the bottom facet a bit lower to go with the roundness of the head. If you are going to learn to cut, you will therefore also, halfway through your finger, you will also have to take over the pass. Otherwise, you cut your finger. Here I check myself, you do that too. If you're not sitting right, correct yourself at this moment and not at the very end. When I'm done, I wet the top part. And then I'm going to look closely whether the 2 parts, the top and the middle part, align well with each other and that there's no corner left. And if there is a corner, and you can easily remove it now. So you project it upwards. Look, you can see exactly from the position of my fingers, it follows the curve of the head nicely. If you still have a few hairs sticking out, cut them off and also for yourself. If you like to put your comb next to it to measure, just do it and then remove the tiny bits. If you have done the top surface and the middle surface, then the bottom surface remains. And you see that here, I'm moistening it again, because if the hair is really dry, you might see sharp lines in the final results. We don't want that, so make her hair well moisturized. So I want to cut along the curvature of the head, and now I let the through, or let your customer or model look down. Why the position of my fingers follow the shape of her skull. So this cuts the nicest. When she holds her head straight, you'll have to go very low to avoid the roundness of the head. Look, you can obviously sit on a stool in the salon, but let the customer then look down lightly so that you beautifully project the hair 90 degrees from the head and can cut the same length. Then do what you did to the rest on the head. Also work with the graying guidelines. So every time I take a piece of my previous pass and where I'm cutting, that's where my body is. By using the palm-to-palm technique, my body stays as straight as possible. When you might learn to do this overhand, you'll notice that your arm has to hang over the client completely. That is hard to make good passes, that your back is all bent, and that is just heavy for your body. So when you're going to learn to cut, learn it in the right way. Then it's palm to palm again, the correct way to cut. especially later on, as we continue in the videos, that graduation will also be addressed. Then you will use the palm-to-palm technique. It's much easier and nicer to create a gradient in the hair than if you don't do it. So please, I learn in the right way. When you have done all the passages, then all you have to do is cut the outer part of the hair, the contour line. You don't have to split this because you've already done all the inner layers. Well, check yourself. And how do you check yourself? Take your hair straight out of the head, 90 degrees, and put your comb next to it, and then you know exactly if you are right. So I'm making it slightly damp again, and just going to cut the outside of the hair. The last thing I do now is cutting the mop. And I'm cutting it slightly downwards, not holding it too tightly, and following the diagonal line backward that we created with our equal layers. Shortly at the back, I will apply the comb control technique. And I've already talked more about that in my films 1 and 2 that are already on my YouTube channel. So if you want to know more about that, you can watch it back. Well, once we've done that, we are done with these equal layers. Then we shape it a bit more, and from here, you can go any direction. I use this ceramics to style the hair. If you want, you can make it nicely layered or nicely curled. You can beautifully feather it, whatever you want. I choose to first naturally dry with a bristle brush and then use a round brush to give the tips a slight movement. I hope you guys enjoyed this movie again, that you learned a lot from it. So this was the third movie on my YouTube channel. Want to see more? Subscribe for free to my channel and follow all the educational videos that I'm going to post. I wish you all the very best and see you next time.